Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into something a lot of you have been asking for. A deep dive into these 10 simple daily habits for mental health. Those little things we can do each day to just feel a bit better, more at ease, more energized, kind of like a mental tune-up without having to totally change your whole life.
Yeah, exactly. It's not about this huge overnight transformation. It's more about finding those small things you can fit into your routine that you can actually keep doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you're building this foundation for feeling good, just brick by brick.
Okay, I love that analogy. So where do we start building this foundation? The video suggests morning mindfulness, which I gotta admit sounds a little tough. Who's really got time to just be still before the day even starts?
I know, right? But you'd be surprised, even just a few minutes, just taking some deep breaths or just thinking about what you want from the day, it really can make a difference. It's like giving your brain a little vacation before all the crazy stuff starts.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about feeling calm, it's actually changing what's happening in our brains.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty wild. Okay, so then there's habit number 2, move your body. I'm definitely not a gym person, so I really like that the video's not saying you have to go crazy. What kind of benefits are we talking about here?
Well, when you get your body moving, even just a little, your brain releases these things called endorphins. And they're basically like mood boosters.
Your body's own happy pills, huh?
Exactly.
So that's better sleep, more energy, and even, a sharper mind, all from just moving around a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm convinced. All right, number 3 is one we hear all the time, but maybe don't always take seriously. Hydrate. I know I forget to drink enough water all the time. What's the big deal if you're just a little dehydrated?
Well, our brains are mostly water, 80% water.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, and even when we're just a little bit dehydrated, our brains just don't work as well, It's you get that sluggish feeling, can't focus, maybe your mood even dips a bit.
So that brain fog I get sometimes, that could actually be from not drinking enough water. Note to self, keep that water bottle handy. Okay, habit number 4 is practice gratitude. I've tried gratitude journaling before, and even on those days when everything feels like it's going wrong, it can be a real mood booster.
Yeah, for sure. And gratitude's more than just a nice feeling. It's like a brain training tool. When we think about what we're thankful for, even little things, it's like we're shifting our brains away from what's missing and towards what's already good.
It's like we're teaching our brains to look on the bright side and be more resilient, even when things are tough. I like that. Okay, number 5 is limit screen time. This one's got to be a big one, right? I mean, we're all pretty much glued to our devices all the time. So what's the downside of all that screen time?
Well, technology is amazing, right? But too much screen time can be hard on our mental well-being. It's like constant information overload, comparing ourselves to others on social media, and all that blue light messing with our sleep. It's like our brains never get a chance to rest.
It's almost like our brains get tired from all that stimulation. Okay, that's definitely going to be more mindful about my screen time. Speaking of connecting, let's move on to habit number 6, connect with others. Why is being around other people so important for how we feel?
As humans, we're just wired to connect with each other. It's in our DNA.
Right.
And when we have real, genuine interactions, our brains release this hormone called oxytocin. It's sometimes called the cuddle hormone, and it helps us feel closer and supported.
So it's not just about being less lonely. It's actually something happening in our bodies that makes us feel good when we're around others. Okay, habit number 7 is declutter your space. And I have to say, this one is like therapy for me. So is there a real connection between our physical space and our mental state?
Oh, for sure. There's this powerful link between how our surroundings look and how clear our thinking is. It's like if your space is a mess, your mind feels cluttered too. It can feel chaotic and overwhelming.
Yeah, like your brain's working overtime just trying to make sense of the mess. Okay, so habit number 8 is practice deep breathing. This is one we can literally do anywhere, anytime. Why is something as simple as breathing so powerful?
Well, deep breathing, it's like this secret weapon for calming down. When we take these big, slow breaths, it flips a switch in our nervous system and tells our body to relax. It slows our heart rate, lowers our blood pressure, and all that stress just kind of melts away.
So we're hacking our own system to chill out. Okay, I got to try that right now. Take a deep breath. Oh, I already feel a bit more relaxed. Okay, habit number 9 is get quality sleep. I think we all know how important sleep is, but why is it so essential for our mental health?
Sleep is like hitting the reset button for our brains and bodies. When we sleep, our brains process information, make memories stick, and repair any damage. But when we don't get enough sleep, our thinking gets fuzzy, our moods go haywire, and even our immune system takes a hit.
So skimping on sleep is doing us more harm than we realize. Okay, I'm putting away my phone and committing to a good night's rest tonight. Let's wrap things up with habit number 10. Be kind to yourself. Why is self-compassion so important for mental well-being?
You know, in today's world, it's so easy to get caught up in self-criticism and negative self-talk. But self-compassion, it's about being kind to ourselves, recognizing that we're all human, we all make mistakes, and that's okay.
I love that. It's about silencing that inner critic and being gentle with ourselves, especially when we're struggling. Wow, we covered a lot of ground already. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling super inspired to put some of these habits into practice. What's standing out to you most from what we've talked about?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that these simple habits, they really can make a huge difference in how we feel. They're not just quick fixes, they're like investments in our long-term health and happiness.
Absolutely. And we'll be right back to dive even deeper into these habits and share some tips for making them part of your daily life. Welcome back. It's pretty amazing to think about how these little everyday things can have such a big impact on our mental state. It's like we've got all these tools for feeling good already built in. We just got to figure out how to use them.
Yeah, exactly. And the science behind it is super interesting. Remember how we were talking about gratitude? It's not just about feeling good. It's actually changing how our brains work.
Right.
Studies have shown that gratitude can actually increase activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is, the part of our brain that handles decision-making and managing our emotions.
So it's like gratitude is giving our brains a workout, making those parts stronger. That's so cool. What about deep breathing? We talked about how it can trigger that relaxation response, but what else is going on?
Well, when we take those deep breaths, from our diaphragm, it's like sending a signal to our brain that everything's cool, we're safe, we're in control. And that helps to lower the amount of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which are the ones that can really mess with our mental and physical health.
It's like we're hacking our own nervous system to chill out.
Yeah.
I love that. And the best part is, it's something we can do anywhere. Okay, let's switch gears for a second, talk about screen time. We know that spending too much time on our phones and computers isn't good for us, but what's really happening in our brains when we're constantly scrolling and clicking and swiping?
So one of the key things here is dopamine. Dopamine is this neurotransmitter. It's like a chemical messenger in the brain, and it plays a big role in how we experience pleasure and reward. And when we do something enjoyable, like scrolling through social media or playing a video game, our brains release dopamine, and it makes us feel good.
So we get that little rush, and then we want more.
Right, exactly. But here's the thing. When we're constantly getting these dopamine hits, it can lead to something called desensitization. Basically, our brains get used to it, and they need more and more stimulation to feel that same level of pleasure.
Wow, that's kind of a scary thought.
Yeah.
It's like our brains become numb to the little joys in life.
Yeah.
Okay, definitely makes me want to rethink how much time I'm spending on my phone. Let's talk about human connection. We know it's important, but why is it so vital for our mental well-being?
We humans, we have this deep need to belong, to feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves. When we have strong social connections, we feel supported, understood, and we matter,
Yeah.
And those connections, they give us this feeling of security and belonging that's so important for our mental and emotional health.
It's like those connections are anchors that help us feel grounded and safe in the world. And when we feel that way, we're better able to handle all the ups and downs that life throws our way. Okay, let's go back to decluttering for a minute. We talked about how a messy space can lead to a messy mind, but what does that actually look like in real life?
Well, when our physical environment is full of clutter, it can create this sense of chaos, and it's hard to focus and be productive. Our brains are constantly trying to process all that visual information, all the stuff everywhere, and it can be really mentally exhausting.
Like our brains are working overtime just trying to make sense of it all.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm officially convinced. A clean space equals a clear mind. What about movement? We know that exercise releases those feel-good endorphins, but are there any other mental benefits we should know about?
Movement is like magic for our brains. Seriously. Not only does it boost our mood, but it also helps us think more clearly and helps regulate all those important neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine that we were talking about.
So we're talking better focus, a better mood, and maybe even a boost in creativity. That's a pretty good reason to get moving. And it doesn't have to be like a crazy workout. Even just a little bit of movement, like going for a walk or doing some yoga, can make a big difference. All right, let's wrap up this science deep dive with a chat about sleep. We know sleep is essential, but what's actually happening in our brains while we're snoozing?
Sleep is when our brains and bodies get a chance to, rest and recharge. It's when our brains process all the information from the day, make those memories stick, and clean out any toxins that have built up. It's like hitting the reset button so we can wake up feeling refreshed and ready to go.
So skipping out on sleep is a really bad idea. I'm definitely making sure I get my 8 hours tonight. This has been such a fascinating exploration of the science behind these simple habits. It's pretty incredible to realize how much control we have over our own mental well-being just by doing these little things.
Exactly. And the best part is, these habits are things anyone can do. It's not about making huge changes. It's about finding those small, sustainable things we can do every day to feel better.
Absolutely. We'll be right back after a short break to share some practical tips and strategies for making these habits a part of your daily life. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the show. We've talked about all the cool science behind these 10 simple habits for mental well-being, and now it's time to get, practical. How do we actually make these habits part of our daily lives? Because I don't know about you, but my schedule is already pretty packed.
Well, the good thing about these habits is that they're super flexible. It's all about finding what works for you, what fits into your routine and your life. It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress.
Okay, I like that. Progress over perfection. So let's break it down, habit by habit. We started this deep dive talking about morning mindfulness. Any tips for actually, making this a regular thing? Because let's be real, that snooze button is pretty tempting some mornings.
Oh, I know, right? One trick is to set your alarm just a few minutes earlier and keep your meditation cushion or a comfy chair right by your bed. That way you can literally roll out of bed and into a few minutes of quiet time before, the day gets crazy.
Yeah, no excuses. Okay, what about movement? For those of us who aren't hitting the gym every day, how can we make movement more fun and less like a chore?
Think outside the box. Put on some music and dance around your living room, go for a walk in nature, try an online yoga class, or even just stretch for a few minutes while you're waiting for your coffee. The key is to find something that you enjoy, something that doesn't feel like a chore.
It's about moving because you want to, not because you feel like you have to. Okay, hydration. We all know we should drink more water, but how can we actually turn that into a habit?
Keep a water bottle with you all the time and set reminders on your phone to just take a few sips throughout the day. You can even add things to your water like cucumber slices or mint leaves to make it more interesting.
Ooh, yeah, I love adding cucumber and mint to my water. Okay, what about gratitude? We talked about journaling, but are there other ways to bring more gratitude into our lives?
Absolutely. You can make it a part of your daily routine. Maybe each evening think about 3 things you're grateful for, or tell someone you care about how much you appreciate them. The important thing is to be intentional about noticing and appreciating the good stuff in your life.
It's about focusing on what we have, not what we're missing. Okay, screen time. This one's a tough one. Any tips for having a healthier relationship with our devices?
A lot of phones have those built-in features that track your screen time, so start by paying attention to that. Once you know how much time you're actually spending, you can set some goals to cut back, even just a little bit. You can also try creating tech-free zones in your house, no phones at the dinner table or in the bedroom.
It's about setting boundaries and giving our brains a break from all that stimulation, right? Connecting with others in our busy lives. How can we make time for those meaningful connections?
Well, put it on your calendar, just like you would with a work meeting or a doctor's appointment. Schedule time to connect with people you care about. It could be a weekly dinner with friends, a phone call with a family member, or even just a quick text to check in.
Making connection a priority. I love it. Okay, decluttering. Any tips for making this less overwhelming?
Start small. Pick one area, like a drawer, a shelf, or a corner of a room, and just focus on that. Set a timer for 15 minutes and see how much you can declutter in that time. You'll be amazed by how much you can get done.
It's all about those little wins, right?
Yeah.
Okay, deep breathing. We talked about how powerful it can be. How can we make this a more regular practice?
You can work deep breathing into your daily routine pretty easily. Take a few deep breaths before a stressful meeting, during your commute, or before you go to bed. There are also tons of guided meditation apps and videos online that can teach you different techniques.
So many resources out there. Okay, last but not least, sleep. How can we improve our sleep hygiene and make sure we're getting those DZs?
Be consistent. Try to go to bed and wake up around the same time every day, even on weekends, to get your body into a regular rhythm. Do something relaxing before bed, like taking a bath, reading a book, or listening to music. And definitely avoid screen time for at least an hour before you go to sleep.
Those are great tips. And finally, self-compassion. How can we learn to be kinder to ourselves?
Start by paying attention to those negative thoughts that pop up, and then challenge them. Like, talk to yourself the way you'd talk to a good friend. Remember, we all mess up sometimes. Those little imperfections are what make us human, right?
What a great way to put it. Well, this has been such a fun and inspiring conversation. It's amazing to think that these simple habits can really make a difference in how we feel and how we experience life.
Totally. And remember, it's a journey, not a race. Start small, be patient with yourself, and celebrate the progress you make along the way.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into simple habits for mental well-being. We hope you've learned something new and that you feel empowered to make some positive changes in your life. Until next time, take care of yourselves and keep exploring. You know, we all have those days where we just feel, down.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But what if that feeling just kind of sticks around?
Yeah.
Becomes like a constant thing.
Definitely.
That's what we're going to dive into today. We're talking about depression.
That's right.
And we're looking at some notes for this deep dive.
Okay.
And these notes are from an episode that's titled Finding Light in the Dark, Practical Ways to Overcome Depression. And we're going to try to give you some really solid practical strategies for dealing with depression, ones that are, backed by science. So they're good.
Yeah, it's really interesting because when you understand like the science behind depression, it can actually give you a lot of power over it.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm excited to kind of unpack that a little bit today.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, before we get too serious though, I got to make a confession. Sometimes I think my laundry basket is like sentient.
Okay.
Like it's breeding clothes overnight.
Uh-huh.
Anyone else have that problem?
You know what? I think we've all been there.
No, but in all seriousness, let's talk about depression.
Okay, yeah. Let's get into it.
What is it really?
Yeah, so depression, it's more than just feeling sad.
Right.
Everyone feels sad sometimes. It's a totally normal human emotion.
Exactly.
But depression is like this persistent low mood. And it affects not just your feelings, it affects your thoughts, it affects your behavior.
It's like everything. It's all encompassing.
Yeah. It can make even like simple things feel like you're trying to walk through mud every day.
Ugh, that's a good way to put it.
Getting out of bed, showering, just, basic things.
Oh boy.
They feel exhausting.
Yeah, and the notes mention causes too, right? Like what causes it?
Right. So there isn't just one single cause for depression. It's not like that. It's usually a combination of things.
Okay.
There's genetics, there's brain chemistry involved, life events definitely play a role, and even like the way we think can contribute.
Wow, it's like a big puzzle.
Yeah, exactly. The several pieces kind of make up that whole picture of what depression is.
Okay, so that's the, what it is.
Yeah.
But why is it so impactful? What's a surprising fact about the science of depression?
Yeah.
Like something most people wouldn't realize.
One of the things that I think is so fascinating is that depression can actually shrink certain areas of the brain.
Really?
Yeah. And specifically the hippocampus.
The hippocampus.
Which is that part of the brain that is really involved in memory and learning.
Right.
And this just kind of shows how interconnected our mental and physical health are.
Right.
It's not just in our heads. Like, it's not just about feeling sad. It can actually have real physical impact on the brain. But there's good news.
Okay, good.
With treatment, those areas can actually start to grow back. The brain is amazingly adaptable.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. It really shows how resilient the brain can be. And speaking of resilience, the source material mentioned some really powerful personal stories. And one that I really connected with was about this woman who described her depression. She said it felt like being trapped in this gray, soundproof box.
Oh, wow.
But her turning point came when she started volunteering at an animal shelter. And, caring for those animals helped her reconnect with, joy and a sense of purpose.
Yeah, that's so powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing how just, finding a purpose, even in small ways, can make such a big difference.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. Even small things make a big difference. And speaking of small steps, the notes mention something about the importance of a good morning routine. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Starting your day with even a simple routine can set like a really positive tone for the rest of your day.
Okay.
You know, it doesn't have to be anything complicated. Something as easy as like getting some sunlight first thing, or taking a quick walk, or even just making your bed.
Okay, I'm on board with the making the bed thing.
Yeah.
That one I can do.
Exactly. Those small wins can really make a difference in your mood.
Small wins count. But what about exercise? I gotta admit, when I'm feeling down, the gym is like the last place I want to be.
I totally get it. I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
But here's a fact that might motivate you.
Okay.
When you exercise, your body releases these things called endorphins.
Endorphins.
Yeah.
Okay.
And these chemicals, they act as natural painkillers and mood boosters.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they interact with receptors in your brain, reducing your perception of pain and triggering this positive feeling. It's literally like giving your brain a happy hug.
A happy hug for my brain. Okay, I'm listening. And what about mindfulness and meditation? I gotta be honest, those always seemed a little, I don't know, mystical maybe to me.
No, I totally understand what you mean, but they're actually very practical and they can be really helpful tools. You know, mindfulness is really about just bringing your attention to the present moment.
Okay.
You know, noticing your thoughts, your feelings, your sensations without judgment.
So not trying to change anything, just being present with it.
Exactly. And there are so many different ways to practice mindfulness. Like, you know, meditation is one way, but there's also things like, you know, mindful breathing or mindful walking, or even just paying attention to your senses as you eat your lunch.
You know, I actually tried that grounding technique the other day where you like focus on what you can sense in that moment. Like just to name 5 things I could see, 4 things I could touch, you know, and so on.
Yeah.
And it was actually surprisingly helpful to just kind of pull me out of my head.
That's a great example of a grounding technique. And it's really about bringing your focus to the present moment. You're using your senses to ground you in the here and now. And that can be really, really helpful because it kind of breaks the cycle of negative thoughts that can sometimes just, you know, spin in our heads.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. And speaking of connections, we've got to talk about the importance of having a good support system, right? Like that's got to be important.
Oh, absolutely. Human connection is crucial, especially when you're struggling.
Yeah.
And, you know, remember how we talked about the hippocampus shrinking earlier? Well, social isolation can actually make that worse.
Really?
Yeah. So, you know, reaching out to friends, to family, to support groups, that can make a real difference in how you feel.
So reaching out is like brain boosting medicine.
I like that. Yes.
I like that. And speaking of seeking help, we should probably talk about therapy. There's still so many misconceptions about that.
Oh, absolutely. It's true. Like one of the biggest myths out there is that therapy is only for like serious problems, you know? But in reality, it's kind of like having a personal trainer for your mental health.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. It's a safe space to, you know, process your emotions, to learn coping skills, and develop healthier patterns of thinking. And you know what? Studies have actually shown that therapy can physically change the brain.
Wow, that's amazing.
It can strengthen those areas that are affected by depression.
So for anyone listening who might be, you know, struggling with feeling isolated, or even just finding the motivation to take that first step towards feeling better.
Yeah.
What's one question you'd encourage them to ask themselves?
That's such a great question. I think a really powerful question to ask yourself is, what small step can I take today to show myself kindness and care? And it doesn't have to be anything huge. It can be something as small as, you know, 5 minutes of deep breathing, or just reaching out to a friend. You know, it's about taking little steps towards self-care.
That's really powerful. And I think it's important to remember that even the smallest step forward is still a victory.
Right.
You don't have to conquer the whole mountain at once. You got this.
You do. You've got this. And you know what? Maybe, just maybe, consider this. If you were offering advice to a dear friend who is struggling with similar feelings, what would you say to them? And then extend that same compassion to yourself.
That is beautiful. That's really, really beautiful. And that's something to think about, isn't it?
It is.
And I think that's a great place for us to wrap up today.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening out there, you are worthy of care, you are not alone, and there is always hope. Take things one day at a time, one step at a time. We're all in this together.
We are. And remember, small steps can lead to big changes. You got this.
You got this.
We're rooting for you.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
And we'll catch you in the next deep dive.
See you next time.